Hi everyone! Before the start of this video, I have a special announcement to make. I have partnered with Australia's online VtES card store to do a giveaway. Australia's online VtES card store is your one-stop shop to all your VtES needs. That's bit.ly/AU online VtES. Stay tuned for later in the videos where I share the details for this giveaway. And now, to the video. Hey everyone, I think we are good to go. Ready or not, here I come. Hey everybody, welcome to the second video of the series where we look at budget updates for the VtES 5th edition pre-constructed decks. If you haven't already had a chance, do go take a look at the first look videos for these same 5th edition pre-constructed decks, and check out other videos for deck ideas on the other clan pre-constructed decks in this release. Once again, today I have got the Prince, oh sorry, I keep forgetting, he's not the Prince, the National Coordinator of Australia, fantastic distributor for all things VtES in Australia, and a all-around great guy, Mr. Steve Harris. Woo!
Thank you, Nathaniel. It's a bit much, but that's all good. I'm happy with that.
It's not a bit much when introducing you.
That's all good. Thank you very much for inviting me along.
No worries. It's always a great pleasure to have you with us on this podcast. So, what are we looking at today?
Today, we'll be looking at upgrading the Banu Haqim deck from 5th Ed, released not that long ago.
The Banu Haqim is the new clan for what used to be Assamites, I believe.
Yeah, in terms of the card game, the two terms are interchangeable. Old Assamite cards work with Banu Haqim and vice versa.
Right, so just as a reminder for you guys who haven't had a chance to look at the previous video, this is a budget upgrade podcast, so we will be looking at what we can do to upgrade the Banu Haqim pre-constructed deck with just $25 US. All prices mentioned here are based on singles prices from Australia's online VtES card store. I will put the link in the description below, and you're going to hear this link in the description below a lot from me today. And yeah, so take it away, Steve.
All right. Well, having a look at the decks.
Sorry, Steve, I had to cut you off a bit. Yeah. I just forgot my own format for this podcast. Before you start, let me just do a quick run through of the existing deck list for the pre-constructed deck, just so our listeners and viewers at home have got an idea of what we're working with to start. So the Banu Haqim pre-constructed 5th edition deck has got 12 crypt cards, consisting of 10 unique crypt cards, making up 12 Camarilla vampires in total, 6 unique titled vampires, which means there are 6 vampires in there that are titled. Some of them are repeats. So for a total of 8 titled vampires, which means we have 2 duplicates. Lowest capacity is 3, highest capacity is 9, for an average capacity of 5.5, which isn't too bad. On the library side of things, it has got 77 library cards, consisting of 15 master cards, 8 action cards, 2 political actions, 1 retainer, 8 combo or combination cards, 31 combat cards, and 12 reactions. And that's the existing base that Steve had to work with. And now,
Fantastic.
yeah, and now over to Steve for the upgrades.
Fantastic. Well, I'll start with what I added into the deck on the crypt. I added in 1 Farasub. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that somehow, and 1 Cassandra Tasaki. Basically, doubling down on a couple of the existing titled vampires in the deck.
You know what would be really nice, Steve? It would be great if whoever came up with the names for these vampires hop on to the comments below and just tell us, all right, you plebs, listen up. This is how this is pronounced.
Provide a phonetic guide to the vampire names.
Because otherwise,
that'd be great.
Yeah, because otherwise, you and we're just gonna butcher names until.
I think that's just going to be a part of it. We're going to accept that some of them are going to get butchered.
Fair enough.
So yes, and in terms of the library cards that I added, like last time, I wanted to push it to 80 cards. So I added in a Dreams of the Sphinx and a Fame for master cards, and then added in 1 copy of Hunter's Mark, 1 copy of Router's Hand to the actions, a couple of parity shifts as they're not bad, and just up the combat a little bit. The Resistor Grass are usable as modifier or combat. A couple of those, a couple of blurs, 4 psychs, and 2 Regio Modus, or Regio Motum as they are accidentally misprinted in this set.
I did not notice that. Good catch. That makes this a collector's item, I would think.
And it's been confirmed. It wasn't that they were renaming the card. It is, I believe, it is supposed to be Regio Modus. It was simply overlooked during the proofing, I believe. It's these things happen in the process,
Yeah. All right.
So that's all that I added. Now, keeping the crypt to 12, I had to remove a couple. So I took out the new, I think, Group 6 version of Kalinda. She is dear to many of our hearts from Group 2, from Ancient Hearts days, but she didn't really suit what I was trying to do. And I took out Kasim Baya. I believe he's the Justicar. Votes are nice. His capacity is quite high. I'll have things to say about him later. I think he's good, but not for what I was doing. Dropped the Underworld Hunting Ground, and Thaumaturgic Experiment. Just 1 copy didn't feel great to me. Dropped Mr. Winthrop as well. I removed all 6 copies of Swallowed by the Night, 2 copies of Blood Rage, and 2 on the Quivi.
So I was a little bit curious when I saw the changes that you made to this deck. I understand the removal of Kasim and Kalinda. I have to say I was a little bit disappointed Kalinda didn't make the cut because I like the art. I mean, regardless of text. I can see why she got dropped. It's still a little bit disappointing. I think from a gameplay perspective, I was actually curious why, just looking at the original Banu Haqim pre-constructed deck, it had a significant amount of wake effects. So if you're new to the game, a wake effect is essentially an effect that allows you to block or play reaction cards as if you are unblocked. So they had a significant number of wake effects or wake-like effects that actually unlock you and allow you to block. So it kind of looked like the original intent was for it to be a little bit blocky. So I'm a little bit curious on the removal of 2 copies of On the Quivi and Mr. Winthrop.
Yeah, I could see that was sort of the original intent. I just want to make it a little bit more, how can I put it? The term I want is bruise bleed. Now, it still does have a significant amount. I didn't touch the second traditions, which are decent defense. And I believe there's a market square, so it can potentially get 3 intercept, I think, currently. If you'd left Mr. Winthrop in there, you could have gotten to 4 intercept on an action, I think. So I just didn't. The card, Mr. Winthrop was dropped largely for the card space. The On the Quivis, as I said, I went more action focused rather than reaction. I felt 8 second trads and 2 on the quiz, so sort of 10 wake, or as you say, wake-like effects. I felt were enough. Second trad not actually being, a wake, as you said, is more of a wake-like effect. But yeah.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, I'm not saying whatever Steve built here is wrong. There's no wrong answer when you're building a deck. I was just trying to understand some of the motivations behind the changes. The other card that I was a little curious about was Swallowed by the Night. I think I need to preface a little bit, give a little bit context as to why I was surprised. So Swallowed by the Night, like you mentioned before, when we were talking about the Resist Earth's Graphs, it's both a combat card and a action modifier, which means you can either play it to modify the action, or you can effectively turn it into a +1 bleed by filtering it through the Hakim's Law Retribution. So within that context, what made you decide to give up on, say, Swallowed by the Night and increase Resist Earth's Graphs?
The Crypt, especially once it took out Kalinda and Kasim, there is very little superior obfuscate, and therefore Swallowed by the Night would only be a stealth card. In fact, I think with the Crypt change I made, there's only a single vampire, is the name butchering, Khadiji Al-Kindi, I think her name is, a 6-cap Primogen who has all the new in-clans at Superior. I think she's the only Crypt card with Superior Obfuscate, so suddenly those Swallowed by the Nights didn't look great. I mean, the stealth is nice, but I felt like they were good for the maneuver, or as you say, being able to dump, but for bleed, as per part of the deck concept. But yeah, once that Crypt was changed, I decided to focus on Celerity and Thaumaturgy only.
I think this is where you've basically just pointed out my blind spot when it comes to deck building. So clearly, I built the deck without thinking of both Crypt and Library.
Yeah, I mean, you might be, people may or may not be aware of an old the theory that used to get handed around decades ago, the Happy Families theory, I think it's called.
Yep.
Then there's a calculation, websites and all the rest of it for working out based on your Crypt and your discipline range, how many of each discipline you should have. And while I never actually use it, I do appreciate the concept, so yeah.
Fair enough.
Focusing on 2 disciplines means you can sort of focus a bit more.
That is very true. All right. Before we go on to pick Steve's brain about how he plans to run this new deck, let me just have a quick go through of the changes to the core of the deck after the addition and removal of these cards. So comparing deck lists, originally we had 12 crypt cards, we still have 12. The number of unique crypt cards remains the same. They're all still Camarilla vampires, so that's 10 and 12. We now have less unique titled vampires. So the two vampires that came out were both titled. But at an overall crypt percentage, there is still 8 total titled vampires. We just have more backup copies of some of the titled vampires. The lowest capacity remains at 3. Highest capacity has gone down to 7, which makes the deck, the average capacity of the deck, 5.3, which is slightly lower, but not significantly lower. On the library side of things, we've gone from 77 library cards to 80 library cards. 15 masters have gone up to 16. There's one additional action card, so from 8 to 9. We've bumped up the political action cards from 2 copies to 4 copies. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, I believe all 4 copies are parity shift at this point.
That's correct.
Yep. We've taken the retainer away, so that was Mr. Winthrop. Combination cards we have reduced by 4, so out with the Solo by the Night and in with more copies of Resist Earthgrass. Combat has gone up significantly by about 6%, from 31 cards to 37 cards, and the reaction has gone from 12 to 10 cards. So that's the current breakdown of the upgraded deck. So Steve, this might be a good time for you to have a quick chat about what your plan is with this deck. What's the strategy, how you foresee this deck would be played on the table?
Yes, and didn't get a chance to actually play it in any games, but the general concept was changed slightly from the original, the designer's concept, or what I believe is the designer's concept of the deck. It's more of a bruise bleed deck. The second trads are in there for defense largely, especially given that this deck doesn't have any bleed redirection, no flick options. So we need to be able to gain pool and to block important actions that are really going to hurt us, especially from your predator. So there's a general bruise bleed, and as you noted, combat cards have gone up, so that if and there's a little bit less stealth, I think, overall too. So if you get flicked by someone, you can simply get blocked and play friendly with your cross-table allies or future preys if you see them, however you see them. And if you're not getting a chance to use your combat cards, you can drop them quite easily with the Quim's Law Retribution. General concept is to, for combat, is to basically outmaneuver the opponent to be at long, use Hunger of Marduk, I think it is, to set yourself up to do thefts and empty them of blood, and then maybe punch them for 1 or Walk of Flame to ash them. There's a few answers to combat strike ends, but eventually they would run out of those. So the cycle handle a few of those. As I said, pool gain is kind of important. So the priority contracts, you probably want to pop those off. And the Verlaines are there. Parity Shift is a great card in that you can quite often negotiate it without needing vote push, because you can hand the pool around. And that's evidenced by when it got errated or changed from its original version, where it was X pool, I think, back to
5, yeah.
it was changed to 3. So quite in an early game, it used to be worth 5 or 4, which is significant when you're stealing and adding it to yourself. A set 3, you're only doing 3 damage theoretically to your prey, but you can hand the pool around or give it to yourself. People will sometimes vote for a cross-table ally will vote for a parity shift to keep you alive. Hence, I also added a couple in. So the Fame's in there, just the one because of deck size. You've got some rush cards. You get the second trads. So time of Fame with when your prey's weenie is on 0 blood. Second trad, knock them down. Not bad. So that's the general concept. It's more Bruce Bleed, more and pool game.
It kind of sounds like you've kept the most of the original idea, but basically just leaned in more towards the Bruce side of things.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm kind of seeing a trend here.
And that's not my normal play style, to be honest.
Fair enough, because at this point I'm starting to get a bit curious as to this is going to happen down the line, but I'm starting to get a bit curious if we come around to the Ministry deck, which is absolutely no combat involved. You'll be able to maneuver around the $25 budget to somehow make it an actual combat deck. That would be something.
After up the grass with Python and Cobra Fangs.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just made that up off the top of my head. I don't know if that would work.
So you put here as well that I think you mentioned about being able to deal with strike combat ends, and you put down that you would have liked to put in Sanguine Entrapment. For those who are unfamiliar with the card, Sanguine Entrapment is a Celerity and Quietus combat card, and at inferior, it stops the opposing minion from dodging, and at superior, it stops the opposing minion from playing strike combat ends. I can't remember off the top of my head.
For the entire round. For that. This round,
right?
So, it's you play it before range. It's you can only play 1 per round. Yeah, it's a card that quite a few, especially with more experienced players, have been either trying to make work or successfully making work since it came out in the unaligned PDF set all those years ago. Because I guess there's a lot of Asimite or Banu Haqim fans out there, being the assassins of the vampire world. But they were so easily defeated in the original versions from Ancient Hearts and Final Nights by Majesty or Earthmeld. And there was just very little options to counter that for them. So, Sanguine Entrapment would have been great to fit in, but Quietus, and we no longer have Quietus available.
Speaking of which, so how did it feel to build an Asimite / Banu Haqim deck without Quietus?
A little odd. I mean, sometimes when I'm focusing on a vampire who has Celerity and Thaumaturgy and Quietus, more I think about this, I actually have done this a few times, I'll put in Thefts with Blurs and just a few ranged aggravated Taste of Death. That's the card, Taste of Death. To finish someone off. Always nice to drain them of all their blood and then send them to the ash heap. It was fine. It's another discipline. I have built a few decks over the years with Celerity Thaumaturgy. I think it's a great combination.
And I think with the new, I'm guessing you used to, when you say Celerity and Thaumaturgy, it used to be additional strikes with Theft of VtES.
Yep. Absolutely.
So,
or even there was a second round one too, where you steal 4 blood that no one ever uses.
Blood
Drain Essence.
Drain Essence.
Drain Essence. Yeah, it's like a theft on steroids, but second round only.
I think there was a point in time when the powers that be were trying to make second round combat a thing for the Tremere. But yeah, that did give us some pretty interesting cards though.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now because looking at your new deck list, you didn't add in any copies of Theft of VtES, and I would assume that's because of the new Banu Haqim Thaumaturgy combat card, Hunger of Marduk. Do you think that would be a big game changer in terms of celerity Thaumaturgy style kind of combat?
I've maybe. I've played a lot of Thaumaturgy decks over the year. I really like Tremere. I mean, I like toolboxy decks, and Tremere make good toolboxes in my opinion. So, and Thaumaturgy, just from a very basic concept, is a very strong combat. Theft of Vitae, in particular, is a very strong combat card. You take 2 blood off your opponent, you give it to yourself. So it's not just punch for 2, like lucky strike or whatever, and a punch. You're gaining the blood back. So yeah, it swings. It's actually quite strong when you stop to think about it. So Hunger of Marduk, 10 of those, and you can play them pre-range. So you always sort of get that opportunity just to cycle them, if nothing else. But for the I don't know. I mean, still with 10 Hunger of Marduks in deck, I didn't feel the need to put any in.
Fair enough. I mean, that makes logical sense. I think at this point, it may be a little bit late because we've gone pretty deep into the podcast. Just like to give myself a reminder and also to help any new players who have only started with the 5th edition. I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, that Black Chantry has renamed, and this is also in the role-playing game where they've renamed Thaumaturgy to Blood Sorcery specifically? Or is that a rumor that I heard that was wrong?
I actually haven't heard that confirmed one way or the other. It may have, and it would. I have quite a few friends also play the RPG, so I should check with them to see if that has been renamed. That does sound familiar, and the VtES card game has always tried to sort of follow the RPG in what it's doing. So yeah.
All right. So for you viewers at home, remember to tune in to our next podcast where I will go check whether this is a thing, and I will provide a correction or non-correction depending on what happens. Hashtag shameless.
Fantastic.
All right. So the other usual question. So like we've mentioned earlier, this is a budget upgrade, so there is a limit. But for players with a bigger budget, what would you recommend they look at?
Well, as always, more Dreams of the Sphinx. That card is so good and so easily available and fits into, in my opinion, almost every deck. Even if you're just contesting it because everyone else wants to play it. It's and for combat decks, it's a must in my opinion. So if you're getting hand jammed on anything, Dreams will help you clear it. Get it early. It'll help you rush your vampires out. But in terms of if you wanted to build, if you had no real budget, Cassim Bayer, I would build a deck around him, 5 copies of him, and focus on what he does, which I don't have a copy in front of me, but I believe he can discard a card pre-range, discard a certain a political card pre-range to get +2 strength or something.
Let me quickly take a look. I believe that does sound familiar. You're talking
which
with
was
new
maybe
Majestic card, right?
interesting
Yes, he
for
can.
Simba. Yeah. Yep.
Yes, you're right. He can discard a political action card before range is determined during combat to get +2 strength for that entire combat.
I think I liked his discipline spread as well. Outside of the new clan, just for 9, that seemed fine. You could really push the boats a bit on. Obviously, you would go more boats.
Mm-hmm.
You could do with him being a 9 cap, and being able to get that strength bonus. You can make it more of a multi-rush deck with him using Router's Hand and a range of rushes and contracts, putting down the opponents on the contracts, dropping provision of Cecilia to fill up on blood. There's a whole range of options you can do there.
That sounds like it's going to be a
I'd focus
different
on
deck altogether.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like it's sounds like it's a lot of ideas out there that you can build off this one pre-constructed deck.
Yeah, I think out of the box, there's definitely different angles you can go. I mean, you could make it a more focused wallish type deck. There's a block deck, so that because it has the capability to go in that direction. Drop a few actions and put more reactions and intercept in there. I think a couple of vampires have inferior all spec, which is interesting. With a decent block deck with no all specs. Yeah, I mean, I personally like to do star decks. I like to find a vampire who has some interesting powers and build a deck around that vampire.
That sounds like a plan.
Fantastic.
Well, so that brings us basically to the end of the budget upgrade for the Vampire the Eternal Struggle 5th edition Banu Haqim pre-constructed deck. Oh my god, that is a mouthful. As always, thank you very much, Steve, for joining us on this podcast, and thank you very much for walking us through, or rather letting us pick your brains through what are the available upgrades and options around this Precon deck. So thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you very much for inviting me. It's as fun as always.
Yep. We hope you at home have found this podcast helpful. If you think we've missed anything, or if there's anything else you would like to see, let us know in the comments. And as usual, remember to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. That goes a long way to helping us provide you more content. And until next time, see ya!
Thanks. See you, man.
Thank you for staying to this point of the video. To enter the giveaway, all you have to do is to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and do one of the following. Post a link to this video on Twitter with the hashtag SwakuOZV5. Create a story on Instagram with a link to this video and the hashtag SwakuOZV5. Or comment on the post for this video and tag a friend. You can even do all three for triple the chances. This contest is available for 1 week from the point when this video is uploaded to YouTube. Good luck!